Hey guys, welcome back to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host Alan Bishop, the show where I drink and smoke and answer your questions. Drinking out of a gift from the Whiskey Witch Nation here and drinking a little bit of Spirits of French Lick inverted Lee W. Sinclair. This is a very strange barrel that went out as a single barrel. It is inverted because the proportions are 60 corn, 17 oats, 13 wheat, and 10% caramel malt. The normal Lee Sinclair is the exact opposite on the wheat and the oats. 4 years old, number 2 charred, new American oak barrel, and 103 proof. And it is excellent. Amen, ladies and gentlemen. So today, before we get into our question, we're going to read a little quote from the book we just mentioned in the last video, Sacred and Herbal Healing Beers by Stephen Herod Buhner. I hope I'm saying that last name the right way. The Secrets of Ancient Fermentation. And what we're going to read is this little bit here about Tiswin, a portion of the Papago ritual of the Tiswin ceremony. Again, fermentation, distillation, all those things being sacred to my heart in the way that I see the world, and being a key to a gateway that opens up a new way of thinking, or a different way, a different consciousness from what you might ordinarily be in. So, ready, friends? Are we not here drinking? The shamans drink, the magicians drink. We mix it with our own drunken tears and drink. Amen. So our question today is, maybe this would be a good question. I wish I could send a picture, but I don't see how. I had a whiskey helmet or expansion chamber built that I have yet to run. I understand its function, but what is your opinion on flavor using it, particularly running fruit? So for those of you that are asking what a whiskey helmet is, if you guys have seen the stainless bodied still that I have a lot of times in the background of the videos with the copper helmet, that onion head, that traditional still shaped head that you'll see often in single malt scotch distillation or cognac distillation or most traditional European styles of distillation, that would be an expansion chamber. Typically made out of copper. It makes sense to make it out of copper, and here is my opinion. As a traditional, what I like to see a traditional brandy distiller, that's where I lean the hardest into. I do think it makes a difference. I do think that most people, if they were to run one of those, would see a big difference in the whiskey that they are running, or the brandy that they're running, depending maybe upon what it is that they are actually using as a base alcohol to run through the still. Now, the way that that's supposed to work is that the vapor rises, and what happens is it slowly clouds and it pillows up both sides of that onion-shaped head, or chapeau. I probably did not say that right. It's French for helmet. And then what happens is a very small portion of that vapor is then leaving the still through the line arm, and the rest of it is either clouding and coming back down, or depending upon what the climatic conditions where the still is being run out, or whether it's cold or not, you may get a little bit of passive reflux, meaning that some of that vapor then turns back into a liquid and falls back down into the still to be redistilled, taking you to a higher proof and a higher purity, making a smoother white spirit coming off the still, a cleaner cut spirit, if you will, in double pot still distillation. That definitely has a major effect. Now, it very much so depends on the size still you have and the size outlet you have on that reflux chamber. For most home stills, let's say up to 50 gallons, a 2-inch outlet's probably going to be okay on that. Once you get past 25 gallons, it's probably a little inefficient, but up to 50 gallons, you could probably get away with it. The problem that I have as a professional distiller, and I've had to deal with this many years at the distillery that I work at, is that a lot of still designers do not make a large enough output. So you might have this big, beautiful brandy helmet on your still, or whiskey helmet, whatever you want to call it. And it may, for all intents and purposes, work for that clouding effect, that copper conversation, where vapor is in contact with copper longer, right? The copper having obviously a positive effect on the spirit by pulling out sulfates, because it's positively ionically charged, and some of those elements you don't want in fermentation are negatively ionically charged, therefore the copper grabs hold of them and drops them out of solution as copper sulfate. That part probably works fine. But what doesn't work fine is, let's say you have a 1,200 gallon still and you have that beautiful chapeau, probably didn't say it right again, and your exit is 2 inches. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is now you're forcing vapor through this little tiny exit out of a huge still and a huge brandy helmet. That is not exactly good for making cuts. It's not exactly good for the spirit. It's not. It's not good for the still. You'll blow holes in your still, and ask me. I know. I've been there. I've blown holes in that helmet a couple times now, to the extent we're about to replace this helmet and make some modifications. You would be better off if you had a larger outlet to where that still could gently exit, and what didn't gently exit could just drop back down, right? It's all about the caress. It's all about the, there you go. There's a Kevin Rose Rush reference, the caress of steel, the caress of copper, as it were. As opposed to having that little tiny exit on there and forcing everything through it. Now, I have found ways to work around that. They have not necessarily always been great ways to work around it. They have not always given me the results that I necessarily wanted, but I have obviously also made some very well received spirits amongst both critics and consumers without the best equipment in the world. What I would say is, I highly encourage you, if you really want to get into all grain distillations and you really want to get into true brandy distillations and you really want to do double pot still distillation and you want to take your art to the next level, if you can afford an expansion chamber, go for it. Now, you don't have to have one. I'll give you some examples. So if you were to go to Eastern Europe and you were to look at Palinka or Slivovitsia, most of those stills are pretty flat-headed with a very small outlet, right? And they still make good product. They can make good product. Now, you have to approach things a little differently, and that's fine. And in some instances, with some of those products, they're expected to be a little bit more fiery anyways and have a little more life to them. So this isn't to say that you have to have one. I would say if you can afford one and you're really into your hobby and you want to invest in yourself and invest in your magic and your spirituality, buy one. See what it does for your spirit. If you're just interested in sugar shine, don't worry about it. Straight horse head still, straight sided, flat on top. It's going to do everything you probably want to do. But if you want to take it to that next level and get to that next step, look at them. I'm presuming that these guys are still running. Mine came from a place called Hot Rod Stills, which is in the Ukraine, right? I'm not going to get into any of the politics, whatever, any of that stuff, but great piece of equipment. And if you want to order it, look it up, order one. I'm sure they would appreciate your support at this point in time, in all honesty. So that's what I've got for today, guys. Reach out to me, bishopshomegrown@gmail.com, any of my social media, or in the YouTube comments, and I will try to get to your question. If I know the answer to it, I will give you the answer, or a presumably correct answer. And if I don't know the answer, I'm either going to avoid it or try to find someone who does know the correct answer. Love y'all. Have a great day. Later.